Jake Martinez wiped grease from his hands and looked at the old truck engine one more time. The storm outside was getting worse, and rain hit his garage roof like bullets. He had been working on this beat-up Ford for 3 hours, and his back hurt. At 42 years old, his body reminded him every day that his Marine days were long behind him. Now he fixed cars and trucks for farmers around Denver and tried to keep busy enough to forget about the war. Thunder rolled across the dark sky as Jake walked toward his small farmhouse. The place was quiet and empty, just like every other night. He grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat in his old leather chair. The TV news talked about some satellite problems and strange lights in space, but Jake was too tired to care much. Space stuff was for smart people in labs, not for guys like him who just wanted to fix things and be left alone. A knock came just as he was about to turn off the lights. 3 sharp raps on his front door that made him freeze. Nobody came out to his place at night, especially not in weather like this. His nearest neighbor lived 5 miles away, and the road to his house was barely more than dirt and rocks. Jake grabbed the baseball bat he kept by the door and turned on the porch light. What he saw through the window made him think he was losing his mind. A creature stood on his porch that was taller than any human he had ever seen. It had green scales that caught the light and eyes that glowed like gold coins. The thing wore some kind of armor that looked burned and broken. But what made Jake open the door was not curiosity or courage. It was the small bundle the creature held in its arms. The alien was holding a child. The little one was hurt bad, and Jake could see dark liquid that might be blood soaking through torn fabric. The big alien looked at him with those strange eyes and spoke in a voice that sounded like it came from a machine. "Please help us," the creature said in broken English. "My child is dying. I have nowhere else to go." Jake had seen plenty of wounded soldiers in Afghanistan. He knew what desperation looked like, and this alien mother had it written all over her face. Her armor was cracked and smoking, and she was breathing hard like she had been running for hours. Whatever had hurt her child had hurt her too. "Get inside," Jake said without thinking. "Put the kid on the couch." The alien moved carefully into his house, and Jake saw that she was even bigger inside than she looked outside. Her head almost touched his ceiling, and her feet left wet marks on his floor. But she handled the injured child like any mother would, gentle and careful and scared. Jake ran to get his first aid kit. It was a big one he had kept from the Marines, with everything from bandages to strong pain medicine. He did not know if human medicine would work on aliens, but he had to try something. The child was small and weak, and making soft sounds that broke his heart. "What happened?" Jake asked as he started cleaning wounds that looked like burn marks. "My people want to hurt yours," the alien said. Her translator made her voice sound flat, but Jake could hear the pain underneath. "I tried to stop them. Now they hunt me and my son." The alien child had green scales like his mother, but they were smaller and duller. His eyes were closed, but Jake could see they were the same gold color. The burns on his little body looked like they came from some kind of energy weapon. Jake had never seen anything like it, but wounds were wounds, and this kid needed help. "My name is Zara," the alien mother said. "This is Kix. We are Kethmoran from the fleet beyond your moon." Jake kept working on the child's wounds and tried not to think too hard about what he was doing. "I'm Jake. Hold this bandage right here while I get more supplies." Zara did what he asked, and Jake noticed her hands were shaking. Whatever had happened to them had scared her bad. He brought blankets and pillows from his bedroom and made a soft place for the child on his couch. Then he started a fire in his fireplace because both aliens seemed cold. "Your people are out there right now?" Jake asked. "Yes," Zara said. "They will come for us soon. The Imperium does not let traitors live." Jake looked at this alien warrior who had knocked on his door, asking for help. She could probably kill him with one hand, but right now she was just a scared mother trying to save her child. He thought about turning them away or calling the authorities, but when he looked at little Kix sleeping on his couch, he knew he could not do it. Then we better get ready, Jake said. I've got a spare bedroom you can use, and my garage has tools and supplies. If someone is coming for you, we need to make sure you're both strong enough to handle it. Zara stared at him like she could not believe what she was hearing. You would help us even knowing my people want to harm yours. Jake checked the bandages on Kix one more time and then looked at Zara. Lady, I don't care what planet you're from. You knocked on my door with a hurt kid asking for help. Where I come from, that's all I need to know. The storm continued outside, but inside Jake's house, something new was beginning. An alien mother and her child had found safety with a human who understood that some things mattered more than fear or differences. Jake Martinez had no idea that his simple act of kindness would change the fate of two worlds. 3 days passed, and Jake's quiet farmhouse became something he never expected. Zara slept in his spare bedroom, while little Kix recovered on the living room couch. The alien child was getting better, thanks to Jake's careful attention and some kind of healing paste Zara had in her damaged armor. Jake learned that Kethmoran bodies were tougher than human ones, but they still needed rest and food and care when they were hurt. Zara was different from what Jake expected an alien warrior to be like. She was smart and learned English faster than he thought possible. By the second day, she was speaking in full sentences and asking questions about everything in his house. She wanted to know how his truck worked and why he had pictures of mountains on his walls and what the small box in his kitchen did to make food hot so fast. Your people are very creative, Zara said as she watched Jake fix breakfast. Kethmoran have advanced technology, but we do not think like this. Jake cracked eggs into a pan and looked at her. She was still wearing parts of her armor, but had taken off the helmet and gloves. Her face was more human-like than he expected, with a nose and mouth that moved when she talked. The scales were pretty in the morning light coming through his kitchen window. What do you mean? Jake asked. You make tools from whatever you have available, Zara explained. When Kix had fever yesterday, our medicine did not work. You mixed honey with herbs and used wet cloths. Simple things, but they helped him. Jake remembered the night before when the child's temperature had spiked and Zara's alien medical supplies could not bring it down. He had used old remedies his grandmother taught him, and somehow they worked. The fever broke, and Kix slept peacefully. Through the night, little Kix was awake now and sitting up on the couch. He was curious about everything just like human kids, but he moved differently. His eyes tracked motion faster than normal, and he could hear sounds Jake could not detect. When Jake turned on the television, Kix stared at the screen like it was magic. What is that? Kix asked in his small voice. His English was not as good as his mother's, but he was learning fast. Movies, Jake said. Stories with pictures and sound. Jake put on an old Western film, and Kix watched with wide golden eyes. The little alien laughed when the horses ran and made worried sounds when the bad guys showed up. He asked 100 questions about cowboys and guns and why humans wore hats. Jake found himself enjoying the company more than he expected. My people do not have stories like this, Zara said as she watched her son react to the movie. We have battle reports and tactical studies, but nothing made just for joy. What do Kethmoran kids do for fun? Jake asked. They train for combat, Zara said quietly. From age 5, they learn weapons and strategy. Play is considered weakness. Jake looked at Kix, who was now trying to copy the way cowboys walked. The little alien was giggling and having the time of his life pretending to be a human cowboy. It seemed wrong that any child should grow up without laughter and games. That afternoon, Jake took them out to his garage to show them his work. Zara was fascinated by his tools and how he diagnosed problems with engines. She had knowledge of technology far beyond anything on Earth, but she was impressed by how Jake could figure out complex mechanical issues using basic equipment and years of experience. "Your mind works in patterns I do not understand," Zara said as she watched him repair a fuel pump. Keth Morin learned by memorizing data and following procedures. "You seem to feel what is wrong with machines." Jake wiped his hands on a rag and smiled. 20 years of fixing things teaches you to listen. Every engine has its own voice. When something is wrong, the voice changes. Zara asked if she could try, and Jake handed her a wrench. Her alien strength made the work easy, but she struggled with the intuitive part. She knew exactly how internal combustion engines worked in theory, but could not sense the subtle signs that told Jake where problems were hiding. "This requires wisdom that cannot be taught quickly," Zara admitted after an hour of trying. "Takes time," Jake agreed. "But you're smart. You'll figure it out." That evening they sat around Jake's fireplace, and Zara told him more about her people and why she was running. The Keth Morin Imperium was huge and controlled hundreds of worlds. They saw other species as resources to be used or obstacles to be removed. Earth had been marked for harvest because humans were considered useful as workers, but too primitive to resist. "When I learned of the plan, I went to my commanders," Zara explained. "I told them humans deserved the chance to join the galactic community as equals. They called me weak and ordered me to lead the advanced scout teams myself." Jake stirred the fire and listened. He had heard stories like this before from soldiers who had been asked to do things they could not live with. "So you ran," he said. "I took kicks and stole a scout ship." Zara nodded. "But they caught us before we could reach Earth safely. We crashed in your mountains and barely escaped on foot." Jake looked at little Kix, who was asleep on the couch with an old stuffed bear Jake had found in a closet. The child looked peaceful and innocent, and nothing like the fierce warrior his people wanted him to become. "What made you change your mind?" "About humans," Jake asked. Zara was quiet for a long time. "Records from your world showed things our analysts missed. Art and music created for beauty alone. Soldiers who died protecting civilians they did not know. Parents who sacrificed everything for children who were not their own blood. My people have strength and technology, but we have forgotten what it means to choose kindness when you could choose power." Jake understood. He had met plenty of tough guys who thought being hard was the same as being strong. But the strongest people he knew were the ones who stayed gentle in a world that tried to make them cruel. "Well," Jake said finally, "you're safe here as long as you need to be. Tomorrow I'll show Kix how to fish. Every kid should know how to catch dinner." Zara's golden eyes filled with something that might have been tears. "Why do you help us when you know the danger?" Jake looked at her and then at the sleeping child. "Because that's what humans do." The peaceful days ended when Zara's scanner started beeping during breakfast on the 4th morning. She grabbed the small device from her armor, and her face went pale under her green scales. The readings made her hands shake as she looked at the display. "They found us," she whispered. 3 ships entering your atmosphere. Hunter-class vessels." Jake set down his coffee and switched into the mindset he had not used since Afghanistan. "How long do we have?" 2 hours, maybe less," Zara said. "They will scan for my energy signature and track us here." Jake looked at little Kix, who was eating pancakes and watching cartoons on television. The child had no idea that death was coming for him from the sky. In 2 hours, alien soldiers would arrive to kill a kid whose only crime was having a mother who thought humans deserved to live. "Get your gear," Jake told Zara. "We're not running." Zara stared at him. "Jake, these are not ordinary soldiers. Commander Vex is leading them personally. He trained me and taught me everything I know about combat. He has cybernetic enhancements and weapons that can cut through tank armor. I don't care if he shoots lightning bolts, Jake said calmly. This is my land and my home. Nobody comes here to hurt a child without going through me first. Jake went to his bedroom and opened a locked cabinet he had not touched in years. Inside were weapons and equipment from his military days that he kept cleaned and ready out of old habit. His rifle, body armor, night vision goggles, and other gear that the civilian world never saw. He had hoped never to use them again, but some things were more important than personal peace, that Zara watched him prepare with growing amazement. You cannot fight Kethmoran hunters with primitive weapons. Watch me, Jake said as he loaded magazines with practiced efficiency. Tell me everything about their tactics and equipment. If I'm going to kill them, I need to know how they think. 4. The next hour, Zara explained Kethmoran military doctrine while Jake prepared his property for war. He set motion sensors around the house and rigged explosive devices in places where enemies might take cover. He moved Kix to the basement and showed him how to hide in a special room Jake had built for tornado emergencies. Stay here no matter what you hear, Jake told the frightened child. Your mom and I will handle the bad guys. Jake had called his old Marine buddy Carlos and asked for supplies without explaining why. Carlos arrived 30 minutes later with ammunition, extra weapons, and medical supplies. He took one look at Zara, and his mouth fell open. Jake, what the hell is going on here? Carlos demanded. Alien invasion, Jake said simply. This is Zara. She's on our side. Her people are coming to kill her and her kid because she tried to. Warn us. Carlos stared at Zara for a long moment, and then nodded like this was just another day at the office. What do you need me to do? Get back to town and call Colonel Hayes, Jake said, referring to their old commanding officer. Tell her what's happening, and that more of these things are coming for Earth. We need the military to know. Carlos left quickly, and Jake finished his preparations. He had turned his peaceful farm into a battlefield with fields of fire, cover positions, and escape routes. Zara was impressed by how quickly he had adapted to the situation. You think like a warrior, she said as they took positions in the barn with clear views of the approach roads. I think like someone who wants to live, Jake corrected. And I want that kid in my basement to grow up happy. The first alien ship appeared over the tree line at exactly noon. It was sleek and dark and made no sound as it flew. 2 more ships flanked it, and they moved in perfect formation toward Jake's property. Zara's scanner showed them slowing down. As they homed in on her location, they will land and send ground teams, Zara explained. Standard procedure is to surround the target and close in from multiple directions. Jake watched through his rifle scope as the ships landed in his fields. Armored figures emerged from the craft and began moving toward his house. They looked like larger versions of Zara, but their movements were mechanical and precise. These were not refugees seeking shelter. These were killers doing a job. How many? Jake asked. 9 hunters plus Commander Vex, Zara replied. More than enough to level a small town. The aliens advanced in textbook formation, and Jake smiled grimly. He had fought enemies who followed the book before and knew that predictability was a weakness. These hunters expected to find cowering fugitives. Instead, they were walking into a carefully planned ambush set by someone who had learned warfare in the worst places on Earth. Jake's first shot took down the lead hunter from 400 yards. The alien's shields flickered and failed under the impact of a high-powered rifle round fired from an unexpected angle. The other hunters immediately took cover and began scanning for threats, but Jake had already moved to his second position. Zara opened fire with her own weapon, and Jake saw why she had been a commander. Her shots were precise and deadly, finding gaps in armor that Jake could not even see. 2 more hunters fell before they could locate her position in the barn. But the aliens learned fast. Energy beams started hitting the barn and Jake's house as the remaining hunters called in their positions to each other. Jake had to keep moving to avoid the concentrated fire that could cut through stone and metal like paper. They are adapting to our tactics, Zara warned as a beam passed close to Jake's head. Good, Jake said. Let them think they have us figured out. Jake triggered his first surprise. Explosive devices he had hidden in the equipment shed detonated just as 3 hunters took cover behind it. The blast sent debris flying and eliminated 2 of the aliens instantly. The third was thrown clear, but his armor was cracked and smoking. Commander Vex's voice boomed across the battlefield in the Kethmoran language. Jake could not understand the words, but the tone was clear. The alien commander was angry that his perfect plan was falling apart. What did he say? Jake asked as he reloaded. He called us clever prey, Zara translated. But he is bringing the ships into direct attack position. They will try to level the entire area. Jake looked toward his house where little Kix was hiding. In the basement. The alien child trusted him to keep the monsters away, and Jake would not let him down. He activated his radio and called Carlos. Tell Colonel Hayes to get satellites watching this location, Jake said quickly. Whatever happens here, the military needs to see what these things can do. The remaining alien ships began to glow with building energy. Jake realized they were preparing to destroy everything rather than risk losing more hunters to human tactics. But Jake had one more surprise that even Zara did not know about that. As the ships powered up their weapons, Jake smiled and pressed a button on a device he had kept hidden in his pocket. Every piece of electronic equipment in a 2-mile radius went dead, including the alien ships. His electromagnetic pulse device was homemade and illegal, but it worked perfectly. The hunter ships crashed into his fields as their systems failed. Commander Vex and his remaining soldiers were now trapped on foot with damaged equipment and no way to call for backup. Now we finish this, Jake said as he picked up his rifle and started walking toward the downed ships. Colonel Lisa Hayes arrived at Jake's farm with a convoy of military vehicles just as the alien ships crashed. She brought scientists, soldiers, and equipment that Jake had never seen before. The woman who had been Jake's commanding officer in Afghanistan took one look at the destroyed alien craft and the bodies of Kethmoran hunters scattered across his property and immediately understood the situation. Martinez, what the hell have you gotten yourself into? She asked as medics checked. Him for injuries. First contact, Jake said simply. And it's not going well. Jake introduced Colonel Hayes to Zara and watched the military officer struggle to process what she was seeing. An alien warrior standing in a Colorado farmhouse, talking about invasion fleets and galactic politics, was not covered in any manual. But Hayes was a professional and adapted quickly. How many more ships are coming? Hayes asked Zara directly. The main invasion fleet has 300 vessels, Zara replied. They expected my report confirming Earth's defenses were primitive. When I do not contact them, they will investigate. Hayes looked at the wreckage around them and did quick calculations in her head. How long before they get here? Days, maybe less, Zara said. Commander Vex was supposed to eliminate me and begin detailed reconnaissance. His failure will trigger immediate escalation. Little Kix emerged from the basement, where he had been hiding during the battle. The alien child ran to his mother, and Ben looked at all the human soldiers with curiosity instead of fear. Several of the military personnel stared at him in amazement, but Jake noticed that their expressions showed wonder rather than hostility. That's Kix, Jake explained to Colonel Hayes. He's the reason this whole thing started. Zara couldn't let her people hurt kids like him, so she tried to warn us. Hayes knelt down to Kix's level and spoke gently. "Hello there. Are you okay?" Kix looked at his mother for permission, and then nodded. "Jake taught me to fish," he said, proudly in his small voice. "And I know how cowboys walk now." The colonel looked at Jake with raised eyebrows. "You taught an alien child to fish. Kid needs to know useful stuff," Jake shrugged. "Plus, he likes the cartoons." Over the next few hours, Jake's farm became the center of humanity's crash course in alien contact. Scientists studied Kethmoran technology, while military strategists questioned Zara about enemy capabilities. The news was not encouraging. Earth's weapons were thousands of years behind Kethmoran standards, and their shields could deflect nuclear weapons. But Jake noticed something that the experts missed. As reports came in from around the world about strange signals and atmospheric disturbances, little Kix kept making observations that nobody else thought to make. "The pretty lights in the sky are ships talking to each other," Kix told Jake as they watched news footage of UFO sightings. "But they sound confused." "What do you mean confused?" Jake asked. "They keep asking where Commander Vex is," Kix explained. "And they want to know why the humans are not afraid." Jake realized that the child understood Kethmoran military communications better than anyone else present. Kix had grown up hearing tactical discussions and knew what normal invasion procedures sounded like. What was happening now was not normal. "Colonel Hayes," Jake called. "You need to hear this." Jake had Kix explain what he was hearing in the alien transmissions. The invasion fleet was receiving conflicting information from their advanced scouts. Some reports described primitive humans who would surrender easily. Others warned of unexpected resistance and unknown weapons capabilities. The fleet commanders were hesitating while they tried to understand what was really happening on Earth. "They are waiting for orders from the Imperium High Command," Zara added. "Standard doctrine requires confirmation before attacking a world. That shows advanced defensive capabilities." Hayes saw the opportunity immediately. "How long do we have before High Command makes a decision?" "Unknown," Zara said. "But they will want detailed intelligence about human military strength and technology. They cannot risk a costly invasion if humans have allies or weapons they do not understand." Jake had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. What if we gave them intelligence that confused them even more? He explained his plan while Zara and Hayes listened with growing amazement. Instead of trying to hide Earth's weaknesses, they would create fake evidence of human capabilities that did not exist. They would make the Kethmoran believe that humanity had powerful allies and advanced weapons that made invasion too risky. "You want to bluff them," Hayes said. "I want to make them think twice," Jake corrected. "Zara says her people respect strength and fear unknown variables. Let's give them plenty to worry about." The plan required Zara's help to make it believable. She would record messages using Kethmoran military codes describing fictional human defenses and mysterious alien allies. The messages would be broadcast. On frequencies the invasion fleet would intercept and analyze, but the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Kix was watching old Earth movies again when he made an observation that changed everything. "Humans always help each other fight bad guys," the child told Jake. "Even when they were enemies before, they become friends to stop worse enemies." Jake looked at the alien child who was learning about humanity through cowboy movies and war films. The kid had identified something that even the military experts had missed. Humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or technology. It was their ability to unite former enemies against common threats. "That's it," Jake said suddenly. "We don't need to convince them we're strong enough to win. We need to convince them we're too valuable to destroy." Jake proposed something unprecedented. Instead of preparing for war, Earth would broadcast a message to the entire Kethmoran fleet. The message would come from Zira and Kix together, showing that cooperation between species was not only possible but beneficial. Show them what they could gain by working with humans instead of conquering them, Jake explained. Make them see that destroying Earth would waste resources and potential allies. Zara was skeptical. My people do not think in terms of cooperation. They understand only dominance and submission. Then we change how they think, Jake said. Your son already understands both cultures. He can be the bridge between our worlds. Hayes liked the plan because it bought time for Earth's defenses to prepare. Zara agreed because it might save both human and Kethmoran lives. But it was Kix who made the decision final. I want to help, the child said seriously. Humans are nice to me. I do not want my people to hurt them. That evening, as technicians prepared equipment for the most important broadcast in human history, Jake sat with Zara and Kix on his front porch. The alien mother and child had come to his door asking for help just days before. Now they were about to change the course of galactic history. Whatever happens, Jake told them, you gave humans a chance to prove we're worth knowing. That's more than most species would have done. Zara looked at her son, who was teaching a human soldier how to make the sound of a horse like cowboys did in movies. You gave us something more valuable, she replied. You showed us what we could become. Tomorrow, they would find out if the galaxy was ready for a new way of thinking about different species. Tonight, Jake Martinez sat on his porch with his alien friends and watched the stars, knowing that some of those lights were ships full of beings who might soon become allies instead of enemies. The broadcast equipment filled Jake's living room as technicians made final preparations. Cameras, transmission devices, and computers covered every surface while scientists monitored alien communication frequencies. Colonel Hayes coordinated with military bases around the world as Earth prepared for the most important message in human history. Zara stood in front of the main camera wearing a combination of her damaged armor and human clothes that Jake had found for her. She looked like what she was, a warrior who had chosen peace over conquest. Little Kix sat beside her in a chair that made him look even smaller than usual. The alien child wore a cowboy hat that Jake had bought him and clutched the stuffed bear. That had become his favorite possession. Remember, Jake told them both, just be yourselves. Tell them what you've learned about humans and why that matters. The transmission began at exactly noon Earth time when the Kethmoran invasion fleet would be monitoring all communication channels. Zara spoke first in her own language, identifying herself by rank and military codes that would immediately get the fleet's attention. I am Commander Zara of the 7th Attack Wing, she said formally. I am speaking to the invasion fleet from the surface of Earth with new intelligence about the human species. Jake watched monitors showing signal strength and knew that hundreds of alien ships were receiving every word. This was Zara's moment to either save two worlds or doom them both. I came to this world expecting to find primitive creatures suitable only for slave labor, Zara continued. Instead, I found beings whose capabilities we have seriously underestimated. Humans possess strategic thinking that rivals our best commanders, and technological adaptation that exceeds our models. She gestured toward Jake, who stood just off camera. When my son was injured, a human stranger provided medical care that our own field medicine could not match. When Kethmoran hunters came for us, this same human defeated trained warriors using tactics and weapons our doctrine never anticipated. The tactical lies were mixed with deeper truths, as Zara described. Jake's electromagnetic pulse device and improvised explosives as examples of human innovation. She made it sound like Earth's defenders had access to advanced technologies instead of admitting that one clever mechanic had outsmarted professional soldiers. But the real power of the message came when little Kix began to speak. The alien child looked directly into the camera and talked about his new life among humans with the honest wonder that only children possess. "Humans are not like us," Kix said in his small voice. "They make pictures that move and tell stories just for fun. They teach children to catch fish and laugh when horses run fast. Jake showed me how to fix engines with tools that listen to machine voices." The child's words were more effective than any military intelligence report. Kix described a species that created art for beauty, protected strangers without reward, and found joy in simple things. He painted a picture of humanity that no Kethmoran had ever imagined. "My mother says we came to make humans into workers," Kix continued, "but they are already working to make beautiful things and help each other. If we destroy them, we lose all the wonderful things they could teach us." Jake felt tears in his eyes as he listened to the alien child defend humanity with pure, innocent logic. Kix had lived among humans for less than a week, but understood them better than species that had studied Earth for years. Zara took over again and delivered the message that Jake hoped would change everything. The human capacity for adaptation and cooperation makes them valuable as allies rather than subjects. They possess knowledge and perspectives that could benefit the entire Kethmoran Imperium. I recommend immediate cessation of invasion plans and the opening of diplomatic relations. The broadcast ended, and Jake's farm fell silent, except for the humming of electronic equipment. Now they could only wait to see how the invasion fleet would respond. Intelligence officers monitored alien communications while military forces around. The world prepared for the worst. The first response came within an hour. Kethmoran ships began broadcasting confused questions to each other as fleet commanders tried to process what they had heard. Some vessels moved into defensive positions, while others held steady in orbit. The invasion fleet was arguing with itself. "They do not know what to believe," Zara explained as she translated intercepted messages. "Some commanders think I am lying under human coercion. Others are questioning the wisdom of destroying a species that could be useful as partners." Evening. The communications traffic showed that the fleet had contacted the Kethmoran Imperium High Command for new orders. The invasion was on hold while politicians and military leaders debated what to do about Earth. Jake was making dinner when Carlos arrived with news that changed everything. "Colonel Hayes sent me to tell you," his old Marine buddy said breathlessly. "Other alien ships are arriving in the solar system. Not Kethmoran ones." The report came from deep space monitoring stations that had detected massive vessels approaching from multiple directions. At least 6 different alien species had ships heading toward Earth, drawn by the same broadcasts that had reached the Kethmoran fleet. "Some of them are sending friendly signals," Carlos explained. "Others are demanding to know why the Kethmoran are threatening a protected world." Jake realized that their simple message about human-alien cooperation had created a galactic incident. Species throughout the galaxy were choosing sides based on how they felt about the Yonafei, Kethmoran Imperium, and its expansion policies. Within days, Jake's quiet farm became the center of the first interstellar diplomatic crisis in human history. Alien ships from dozens of species arrived to observe the situation, while the Kethmoran fleet found itself outnumbered and outgunned by a coalition they had never expected. The resolution came from an unexpected source, a council of alien species that governed much of the galaxy sent representatives to negotiate with both humans and Kethmoran. Earth's broadcast had convinced them that humanity deserved protection as an emerging civilization with valuable potential. Jake found himself translated from mechanic to unofficial ambassador as alien diplomats asked him to explain human culture and capabilities. He did his best to answer their questions, while Zara helped translate and little Kix charmed representatives from species that looked like everything from giant insects to living crystals. The final agreement established Earth as a protected world under galactic law, with humanity granted provisional membership in the interstellar community. The Kethmoran Imperium was forced to abandon its invasion plans and pay reparations for the attempt. More importantly, a new precedent was set for how emerging species would be contacted and evaluated. Zara was granted asylum on Earth along with any other Kethmoran who chose cooperation over conquest. She established a cultural exchange program that brought alien students to learn from human teachers while sending human volunteers to other worlds. Little Kix became the first truly bicultural being in galactic history, equally comfortable with human customs and Kethmoran traditions. He grew up speaking dozens of languages and serving as a translator between species that had never communicated before. Jake returned to fixing engines, but now his customers included beings